Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live. We're going to try a half-page rainbow, printable rainbow vinyl holographic sticker paper idea here. We've done this composition several times over the years, but I don't remember doing it on the rainbow style of holographic sticker paper before. I thought it'd be kind of cool to have some of these tones in the water area after doing a scene like this one last night, where we have these colors right in the water. And I thought, well, why don't we just do the whole scene where we have this flowing type of churning water, misty water in a waterfall situation. I don't know. We'll give it a try here and see what it looks like. Okay, so I'm going to be using the waterfall set here, and I was just going to wing it, but I thought, I think I better kind of give myself somewhat of a basic layout of how these are going to go. So I'm going to pre-print my imagery onto the paper, and then I have to block it out with some white ink. So let's see, let me get the gist of the composition here, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I see this waterfall. I usually put this one on the right-hand side of the babbling brook. This is Brook Falls here. And okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of ink on here just for registration purposes. And I'll do it with let's see, I'll do it with a little bit of a lighter tone here. And the way that I've been doing it is I've been inking up my whole stamp and then stamping it out for registration purposes. But I thought, well, why do I do that when all I really need is a little bit of the perimeter of the stamp like that. Okay, I'm going to blot off some of this right here because I just need to know roughly where that stamp is going to be positioned on here, and that's all I really need. And then after I do the waterfalls, I'll stamp some of the tree trunks up top. Hello, Linda, how are you? I was telling, okay, so that's where my waterfall is going to go. And then that's going to get filled in with white pigment ink for the most part. Well, and we'll have a little bit of the flow right here. So I think that'll work out pretty good. Just in terms of positioning. I was telling my wife, man, it feels like these Friday Night Lives, just Fridays, these weeks are just going by so fast. All right, some more ink on this one. Blot off some of it. I'm not going to be perfect in terms of my registration and hitting, you know, these stamps perfectly in line with that whatever registration impression, but I just need to be kind of within the vicinity. All right, so there's that other stamp right there. And this one ends right here, so I need another one right over here. And what's easy to do is you can take, I mean, you can even take this stamp right here and overlap it this way, or you can go with the Babbling Brook right here and go for some additional rocks right here. I think I'm going to opt for this one again, just to vary things up a little bit more. Yeah, it's going to be about, I don't know, maybe an inch into this stamp right here. And I'm going to lower it a little bit, I think. And again, it's just for a little bit of variation from this one over here. It's just slightly lower, I think, maybe about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch. I mean, you can really drop it down too if you want to. It'll make it look like that waterfall's kind of coming out towards us. Hello, Cynthia. How are you? Yeah, yeah. Working on this holographic. It's I think it gives me a little bit more of a, oh, I don't know, whatever. It gives me more ideas on how to utilize it. I think, I don't know. We've utilized it a lot in the past, but like playing around with it with the you know, the other types of papers like this. I mean, this is really fun right here. I mean, this really is a lot of contrast with this kind of more aged looking paper up top, and just kind of hitting these little areas like this was really fun. You know, in terms of the way it turned out. The process was a lot of white pigment ink, but you know, so be it. Yeah. If anyone ever, you know, is thinking about this process, I always tell them, hey, if you think you're going to like the process, if you don't have the ink already, be sure and get some re-inkers for your black and white pigment ink, Brilliance ink, because you're going to be going through a lot of it. Hello, Debbie. Yeah. So if you just joined in, what we're doing is we're doing some registration impressions here for use of the holographic. I was saying that all we need to do is really just do a little bit of the outline of the stamp in as preparation for where I should apply a lot of that white pigment ink. And I'm going to be going over the impressions, but this will just kind of give me the gist of where they're going to be located. Just because I'm going to have so much area on this scene really blocked out with a lot of white. I should have had this done earlier. The day's like flying by so fast. I looked at the clock. It was like, I started, thinking about this scene 10 minutes ago. I was thinking about the scene in general after doing the one from last night and seeing how that turned out. And I thought, I don't think I've done one. I've probably done it, waterfall on the holographic, but I don't remember what it was. And I don't think it was this one with these tree trunks, like a little forested scene in here. Okay, so on this one right here, I might put some sort of source of light right around in this area, maybe. Just coming across this way. I usually like to do it in a little bit of a diagonal. All right. I don't have a lot of space up here because I wanted to focus more of the attention of the scene down here in the water. So we'll do this kind of blocking out with the tree trunks up top here. Like this. We'll go for some big ones here, some big trunks here. Yeah, I've been doing more of these live streams. I wanted to really experiment around with the holographic and kind of get refamiliarized with it. There's certain things that you just kind of I don't know if I forget it, but those little kind of details using the things like this holographic, it's like, I don't know, getting refamiliarized with the layering and the control of the kind of the opacity translucency applications. It's like how much to apply and how much to let show through some of that white ink, There's little things like that. I just have to kind of relearn a little bit. I mean, it doesn't take long, you know, like a couple scenes or something like that. But little things like that. Like the first one, I might just, you know, if I haven't done this for a while, I might apply a lot of white pigmenting, and it looks okay. I'm able to use a lot more colored pencil on it, but then it was like, oh, I liked a little bit more of the rainbow kind of showing through the white in some instances. So that's what I'm going to be doing on this one right here. So there's going to be a lot of these waterfalls in here, and you can see where these trees are going to go. But I think it'd be good to have some of that rainbow colors like showing through all of these objects in here. So I want to make it somewhat opaque, but like churning water, we want that mist, but you know, it'd be good to have some rainbow effect on here. But we have to contrast it though, you know, with you know, enough things like shadowy rock forms with some visual weight to it. So it's like yeah, doing this scene, I'll have a better kind of, after doing it, I'll have a better idea of how much to apply, you know. And then I won't do it for a while, and then I'll forget it again. Okay, so if you just joined in, here's some waterfall stamps right here, and I've stamped out my registration kind of outlines of them on here. That was a water-based dye marker, and the paper, you know, these are completely dry on here on that emulsion. So I'm going to be blocking out a lot of these areas on here and up here in the trees. We're going to be applying a lot more white than within the outlines though, but I'll know just in general where to apply most of my blocking out based on these registration marks in here, okay? So you don't need to stay within the lines, in other words, when doing this. You know, maybe I'll apply a little bit more like on the tree trunks or something like that, and in these rocks, but yeah, it'll be a little bit more free-flowing than, you know, like staying within the lines of a coloring book or something like that. And we'll be covering up some of these registration marks too, but, you know, we'll still be able to see. You can go pretty opaque with the white, but like right in there, I've applied a pretty decent amount of white, like right in there, but you can see that mark still shows. It's because, you know, the dye-based ink covered the emulsion coating on this printable vinyl so that this water-based ink isn't sticking to that impression as much. I mean, it's still a little bit because the emulsion probably, you know, is still exposed somewhat with that really light impression down there, but you know, it's lost a lot of its ability to grab and dry that ink that I'm applying right now. All right, okay, so this is the open waterfall area, so I want a little bit of that tone in here. And at the base of the waterfalls right down here, I want a decent amount of shadow, okay? So I'm gonna come down into those areas to block off the, block out some of the water area. And it's not so that it's white, but it's because I want a buildup of the white to add black, you know, either pigment ink or, you know, darker colored pencils, okay? All right, let's get the show on the road here. Let me see if I can apply this pretty fast through this whole waterfall area. I'll leave some of it a little bit more, a thinner application of the white for translucency. I mean, there's translucent, kind of opaque, and then there's translucent, there's that whole range. So you see some of that tone is still showing through a little bit. There's too much of it right there, but yeah, I want some of that tone to be showing through the paper. Let me see. Sometimes you can't tell how much is, showing through. Okay, there's a decent amount in there. And there's going to be even less because we're going to be using colored pencil over it. So anyway, let's see how it goes. Okay, the waterfalls are going to be right in this area right here. So I want a decent amount of mist like that. But we want that kind of rainbowy fall look in here as well. So if I was to guess or to classify or whatever the amount, I'm probably putting about like a 75% application of this white on here. So 0 being absolutely transparent and 100% being opaque. Like 75 in here, and then in the falling water, maybe like a 20-30% or something like that. It might be a little bit more. Let me see. I just want to make sure that I have enough white down there to stand out from the background. I want it to be, I usually like my waterfalls to be kind of light, the water in them. But it's kind of weird in this one because we're working on this holographic, so it has all these different colors, so I'm not really quite sure how much to apply. So maybe I'll apply, a certain amount on this one and a certain amount on this one. We'll see which one, if there's any difference, if one looks better or not for future reference. Okay, let's come down below the rock right over here. The water's edge, and we'll go down into the water just so we can apply some shadows at the base of the rocks and for them to show up. This is one of the kind of the stranger kind of processes, I think, in as far as like all the techniques that I use goes. It's like you're really building up. It's like a sculpture or something like that. It's like, I don't know, they call it, what is it, bas relief, I think. Just kind of small reliefs in terms of sculpture, like a coin or something like that. I mean, it's like really thin, but we are kind of building this up here. And it's kind of weird building up something from transparent to, towards opaque here. So it almost feels like you're kind of like doing a little bit of a sculpture, albeit very, shallow. All right, so this is what this is looking like, As you can see, it really looks fantastic so far. I always mentioned somewhere along the lines in this kind of process right here, this is what it kind of looks like. Because I just know that if someone tries this out, they're going to be doing this and they're going to be thinking, what the heck? This looks like a big sloppy mess. I mean, look at these like blobs of white ink down here. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. It doesn't feel like a typical type of you know, a little bit more of a controlled process, you know, where we're stamping something out and we're coloring it with markers or something like that. And you can kind of see, you know, kind of where you're going. Okay, let's get some of these rocks down here. We usually don't kind of take something from, you know, immense sloppy mess to, you know, something that's, you know, that comes into focus, you know, from that level of finish. Okay, so that's what those ones look like. I'm going pretty opaque and thick with the application of this down here. And I want a little bit of a kind of this misty tone from there. I think, yeah. So we're going to have shadows right here. This might be a little bit too see-through. Let's go a little bit more over here. And it's kind of weird because I'm adding this in. I don't know if I need to. Like, I can probably come in here with just black too, but it's kind of weird. I'm adding more white where I want certain areas to become darker. And that's because we're going to be using, I want to be able to use some colored pencil in the shadows below the rocks. So it's like you're adding kind of light to go dark too. So it's kind of a weird type of whatever process, sequencing. All right. Okay, so we have that blocked out right there. And then I have this big tree right here. And then I have these thinner trees. I've been kind of waiting to do those ones for the last because I'm going to have to kind of, you know, really squeeze this into a narrow applicator to get into those forms right there. It'd be cool too to do this scene too, where, I don't know, you stamp these out. I'm not sure how the transition would be, but you can stamp these out on like a regular piece of paper and then like cut them out and then put them onto a piece of holographic so you don't have the holographic running through everything. Which I started getting into a little bit more with the cutouts. I don't know, when was that? I think that was this last year. And I'll have to experiment with that a little bit too, because that opens up the door for a lot of different types of scenes. I started doing that type of thing when I was using Deanna's background papers. They were really cool, but sometimes I wanted to use something that was a little bit lighter against some of her darker areas on her scenes. So it was like you just stamp the image and then I might stamp it again on a separate piece of paper and cut out the cabin or something like that, so I can put something within that darker field or area and have it show up. And that worked out pretty good. Where we, yeah, I don't know, we usually weren't doing like cutting out things before, but it's like another one of those things that I really needed to dip into as far as, you know, utilizing whatever techniques were available. I don't know. And for me, cutting things out with this, you know, pair of scissors to use in a scene was very, very different and a super advanced technique for me. It's like, what are you talking about, Kevin, man? We're, you know, people were doing these, whatever, trifold cards and pop-up cards and all that stuff, you know. Everyone's using scissors. I've kind of avoided that over the years. Cutting and masking, stuff like that. Okay, I'm putting a little bit of a cloud form over this. Is going to be the waterfalls right here, but I'm building up this over the top of it so that there will be like this mist in the background a little bit. And then that way we don't have like these harsh kind of angles right here, you know, everywhere. It'll kind of soften up the transition between the top of the waterfalls and the trees. And plus having that mist in the background like that really, it just makes for kind of easier blending of everything. Forms, and it interlinks them together kind of a little bit more gracefully. And then when you do this too, that mist over the top of it, when I stamp these images right over the top of it again, I don't have to be so precise. So do those techniques that just make everything a lot easier. Now this is like an easy process. I went, you know, it's a little time consuming here on a half-page scene where I have so much area blocked out. But this whole kind of process right here just is very, you know, it's simple to do. And plus, I don't have to get it really smoothly applied either. It can be really lumpy. I think that is about it. Okay, now we'll squeeze this off like that, make it a little bit more narrow, and then I'll come up into these more narrow trunks. I really don't want to have to go into something like a Q-tip if I don't have to. So on some of these trees, maybe that's as far as I'll go. Like you can see that right down here, it's a lot thicker and more built up. I have a feeling I'll use some overhanging tree limbs in here anyway. So I don't have to be too complete as far as this application goes. So hanging tree limbs, again, another thing that, you know, kind of makes the process a lot easier. If it's an area that's going to be a little bit of tedium and everything like that, then just hang some leaves over into that area and you don't have to do it. Zealous, good to see you. Janet, hello. Happy Friday to you too. Hello, Caroline. All right, so a piece of the holographic, you can see where, you know, the holographic effects are in play. I'm wondering if I should leave this open like that. I'm kind of leaning towards doing that and not just blocking it out completely over this way. And we have enough, I think, of the white pigment ink, white brilliance ink specifically. We have enough of that to block out certain areas, and maybe I'll come up a little bit higher right in here. We can apply more of this after too, but a lot of this I want underneath my imagery. So I'll put some down below as a base coat, then you stamp all your imagery, do all your coloring, and then come back in with it and go over the top of it to sandwich everything that you just did in between some of this effect and this, you know, you kind of envelop everything in this soft lighting, you know, soft lighting. Meaning the white pigment ink. All right, so that is that. Re-ink your white pigment ink pad if need be before starting that out. Like that, I think that is, see this little hole right here? Let's get that a little bit more opaque. That's like right in the middle of my tree trunk. Okay. And one of the great things about this too, as I always mention, even though it's on metallic and it's a pigment ink, this is pretty dry to the touch, you know. I have a little bit on my finger there from holding this like this, but you know, for the most part, this is really set so that emulsion coating on the printable vinyls, it really works nicely for us stampers because we can just get right into applying whatever next step there is without waiting for it to, having to wait for it to dry. All right, let's see here. Let's go with this first. Should I do this one first or this? I guess it doesn't matter. If I do this first like this, and then I stamp this one, if I mask this impression off a little bit and stamp this, then this will look like it's in front of this one. If I do this one first and mask this off, stamp it out like that, then this will kind of come out, and that part will kind of recede a little bit. I think I'll do this one right back in here, and this one will be kind of recessed a little bit. All right, black Brilliance ink again, and that should dry really nicely and quickly on the white Brilliance ink. Don't make me too big. It'll look horrific. I'll look horrific. I look best on like if you're watching like on a phone. All right. Stamping on with the Brilliance inks on these printable vinyls too, I really love kind of just the general process of that, because it's one of the few surfaces that you're not depending on the ink to absorb and to transfer onto that surface. It's just completely surface oriented, and it dries really fast, you know, without being something like a StazOn ink, where if you hold it down too long and it dries, you know, sometimes it's, you know, depending on what you're stamping on. If it's a metallic, you might be lifting the ink off of the surface. So I really love how this transfers onto this type of paper, sticker paper. I probably hold this down a little bit longer than I need to, but you know, just out of habit. And it stamps out really crisp and clean. Okay. Unlike a holographic cardstock, you know, which I love using too, but you know, just stamp on it with you know, some StazOn ink, and I don't know, I always say do a practice test print on a piece of scrap, just so you know how long to hold your stamp down on the surface before lifting it. I mean, it's not like there's like a 2-second window or something like that, but there might be like a 10-second window, or if you hold, or a 5-second, where if you hold it down too long, you lift it, you know, the ink is dried by that time and it comes out back off on the rubber. Or sometimes if you know, I don't know, you don't hold it down long enough and it doesn't transfer. I'm talking about on like a holographic cardstock, a non-porous type of surface. But this one right here, it's like really, really super, you know, stamp friendly. Okay, I'm going to mask that off a little bit like that. I probably don't need to, but just for that little detail. Okay, and we'll go like that. I'm overlapping here about like a 1/4 inch into this one. It's just that this other one, this side of the stamp, I stamped it really lower to make it look like it's a little bit closer to us. I mean, it's going to be like a really tiny detail, but see that right there? So this one looks like it's a little bit closer to us, and this one's like, I don't know. This one's a little bit more open on that side, but this side had a closed rock right here. a slightly more closed rock. I usually leave it a little bit open on both sides. And that one stamped out a little bit lighter. I would have wanted it a little bit darker. Maybe I didn't hold it down long enough after, speaking about the ink transferring quality. I don't know. It's going to get colored up anyway. All right, foreground rocks. Right here. Where is it? Okay. I'm going to go a little bit higher than that, I think. I think I'm going a little bit higher. Just so I don't have that registration impression sticking out above this rock. Or if it's sticking out, it's not sticking out too much. Okay, and I think it's about right here. I'm overlapping right here, probably about like I don't know, it's almost a 3/4 inch or something like that. And our trees. Okay, I think I will mask these ones off pretty good. So we'll go like, something like this here and that. Have about, 1/4 inch or so of your image showing, just so you don't get a big gap in between your imagery. If there's a little bit of a gap, you can fill it in with colored pencil and other media. Anyway, additional imagery, but just if it inherently doesn't have as many gaps, there's less that we have to kind of do with our coloring. Okay, like that. And we have another one of these right over here. Like that. Okay, so about, like I said, about 1/4 inch of that showing. I don't know, maybe it's not that much. Somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4 inch, maybe. I don't know what that is in millimeters, centimeters. All right, like that, and then 2 more impressions. That was the tree trunk. We're going to tree trunk trio here. This one I know I'm not going to be matching this up. It's not going to be registered very well at all, I don't think. Okay, so that little branch is right there, so it's something like that. All right, I'm kind of, these 2 paper towels are a little bit lower because these 2 paper towels overlap right here, so this is going to be like higher up a little bit. I don't know, maybe that's too much showing. All right, like that. Like I said, it's going to have like overhanging branches, leaves anyway, so yeah, I was off by like 1/8 of an inch right there. If you want to do a stamp positioner and really kind of get it registered and perfect, you can, but I don't know if I'd really bother. It's not really going to show, but if it really bothers you, then by all means, do that. Some people, one time I was in a class, and one person was, we're doing this thing. I think it was with the tonal applicator too, or it was like we're adding tone using a tonal applicator. And one person called me over and they said, "Well, how do I like get rid of that right there? How do I fix that?" It's like, fix what? She said, "Well, there's like a little dot there that's really bothering her." I mean, her scenes came out really great though, but it's it was that was the level of whatever detail, that she kind of, she really focused in on in terms of her process. Okay, so we have all that. Should I let's go and add some of those leaves right now. I think it'll be better to do that now, I'm guessing, because I'm going to add a lot of colored pencil these areas. But here you can see the gist of kind of this scenario here. Okay, we have these colored lights up here that'll be reflecting down in the pool here. So we'll have a lot of other foliage in here, but then we'll really render this out where, the focus of attention really is on the color scheme, which is hard to miss, of course, but it'll really kind of focus the attention much more strongly, with all the darker tones that we'll use in here. All right. Yeah, make that small circle picked even smaller, Zelicist. They have this in Zoom meetings, that program. I don't know if anyone's ever done a Zoom meeting, but you can, you can, I don't know what they call it. It's like a glam filter or something like that, where it kind of like, in the old days of photography, you might put this like haze of it looks like Vaseline directly onto that. That's going way back in time with film photography. But yeah, you can kind of like soften your features in those Zoom meetings. And there's this, like, I don't know what it was. It was like a toggle switch or a numeric one that you bump up, what, whatever, soften your features. All right, leaves like that. Those look great against that holographic like that. I was thinking about putting like a moon in here or something like that. I still might, but I don't know. Just after I'm kind of blocking out these areas like that, it might be enough, to whatever, get the look that we're going after. And the look that I'm going after is, this, tree, canopied area, in a forest situation that's kind of dark, but then we have some lighting kind of, coming through it like that. Okay, so this overhang like that, and I'll put some of these leaves right in here. This is a really harsh area right now. I mean, I think it looks okay, but just to soften up some of these forms in here, we'll have some additional leaves coming up from the base. So it's like little saplings or something like that of the same types of trees. So you'll see like little bushy types of formations. So, but what I'm trying to think of is, do I do that? I might be adding in a lot more like mist or something like that in here. So I think I better hold for some bushes in here, because I'm going to add in a lot more kind of like mist with the white pigment ink down here. So if I have this bush in here, I'm going to be adding it over the top of the, the plant. But over here, I think I'm just going to leave this pretty wide open so I can add it in right now. Or should I wait? I'm going to wait for it. I'm going to wait to add this, those, I think, till the end here. All right, so question is what colors do I add into these rocks in here? Do I kind of make them like a greenish, kind of mossy toned look, or I don't know. We'll figure it out here. I'll just start on with the shading right now. Okay, so you can see the shadows on these rocks. It's always at the base of the rock, and as you move up, it transitions into lighter tones, and then it gets light up here. So what you do is you just kind of go and you reiterate this a little bit with some additional tone, and then you can get like a stronger sense of grayscale by adding in official gray, because this print here, everything's just all in black, you know, and we get some gray tones with the use of stippling, but it always looks more full if you add in actual grayscale. It doesn't have to be black too. It could be, what I mean by grayscale is just different values of whatever colors you're using. Okay, so I'm just kind of reiterating that. Shadow convention of darker tones at the base. So you can see it right here. You see these forms are already looking a little bit more rounded and full. Now this rock right here, this impression, this waterfall, Brook Falls here, stamped out a little bit light, so I can just kind of go in here and add some additional tone in there, like this. If I want these falls to stand out a little bit lighter by contrast, then you just make the area around them a little bit darker. Let's see here. One of the nice things about this paper is I like to get a little bit of tone into these, the falling water. And it's kind of nice just to have it already in there, inherently in the paper. The process might seem kind of, you know, like, oh my God, you know, this half-page scene or something like this. It's, you know, you see me doing all that time with that white pigment ink on here. But a lot of the coloring is already done, you know. And not only that, it's pretty, you know, it color changes and it's dynamic, so it's like, you know, you didn't just, you know, if we were doing this on a white piece of paper, we'd go with whatever color scheme we're going to be going with. But this is like all these different colors in here, just in here. Here's like a nighttime type of scenario, whatever, daytime type of scenario. Psychedelic scenario. Okay, so as I'm coming into these rocks right here, and I'm coloring the base of the rock, here I started doing it over here a little bit. So I'm coming down here into the base of the forms where they meet the water. So like right in here, we added some more of that white coming out into this area, so that for the purpose of being able to add some of this shadow work right down here. So if I didn't have a little bit of white underneath this, or out from that form right then, I can't add that black in here because this, you know, this black doesn't really add, you know, you can't draw that directly onto this paper. It's too non-porous and slick, you know, to grab any of the pencil here. Okay, is Linda still on? Linda, can you can you post, if you're not busy doing something, can you post what, I already forgot the name of those Tim Holtz pencils that you tested on here. If people want some additional ideas on, you know, what you can color this white pigment ink with, Linda did a test with the Tim Holtz, what was it? Crayons or something like that, or okay. Now this is a most of my colored pencils work on here. Linda was having troubles kind of like transferring a lot of her pencils over, so not all of my pencils work on this, because they're a little bit too hard, some of the colors. So, one of the things I suggested was try some watercolor pencils. Okay, so this is a watercolor black right here. My Prismacolor black works really good. It's getting really stubby. So I just grabbed this watercolor pencil out of my watercolor set, and it works just fine. It's really soft. So, if you run into issues coloring on this paper, try some different types of pencils, tools, mediums, okay? And just give it a shot and see if it works out. I probably wouldn't do something like, regular like chalk pastel pencils or something like that, because this is very non-porous. And then you wouldn't really want to have to spray seal this afterwards like you would with a really dry media that's not going to stick to it just inherently. Okay, toning in some of my trees here. I don't want to tone them in too much because, they have some nice texturing on them like that, but I do want to get a little bit of shading down here. So we'll make them a little bit darker right now, and then we'll get them darker with some colors too. Now we have this tree here, that's tree trunk, that's quite a bit darker, so we can have these trees here influencing the lighting on our rocks. Now it's a lot easier to kind of just figure out, your shadow schemes on flat surfaces like a forest floor or something like that. But on something like this, I don't know, I just kind of fake it, So like something like this, I do want some variation. I don't just want like a dark line coming across here, but I'll just kind of maybe add a little bit of tone like this. And I'm making some of these rocks a little bit darker around this tree. Like maybe I'll come across this rock this way or something like that, which could be, a shadow from that tree, but it doesn't have to be. Like something like that, like say that lighting is coming from that way, and it's coming this way, so I'll have this, but I'm not going to put a straight line across there. I'll kind of have it a little bit rounded like that, and we'll come like this. So just so it sits into the, the scenario more fully like that. Okay, let me make that a little bit darker, kind of like back in here. So it's kind of like influencing the objects around it a little bit more by doing that. So just kind of vary it a little bit like that. And I mean, there's other things out here too, so there could be shadows from that too. Here's this really big tree. Here's this rock down here that's really light. So we can, make some of that darker like so. So something like that. And that's just a start. I mean, you can add in more too. Or you just add in a little bit like that. Then you just kind of let it, just leave it as is and then kind of go back to it later and go to other areas. You don't have to work, some little area to completion. You just kind of work in the whole scene here. And that kind of gets you kind of looking at the scene as a whole too. And that's what I always try to remind myself to do, because I can get kind of too locked in on just this little area that I'm working on at any given time. Like this one rock over here or something like that. And I do. I get focused in like that, but then I hold it at an arm's distance and I kind of take a look at the overall thing. I scan, you know, left to right, back and forth, that type of thing. Okay, and oh, these rocks down here I didn't touch yet. I usually have them rocks lighter on the top and then darker on the base, right? But then we have this lighter area right here against light. So sometimes you kind of reverse it a little bit. You can go kind of darker up top like this. Oh, to kind of create a little bit of separation between your areas like that. So see how I've kind of made this dark right here to intersect this right here, or whatever, come into contact with it. So, you know, instead of having light into light, that stands out a little bit more, but then you have, you know, this lighter area down here. The forms are still kind of darker to lighter up top here, but then you just kind of, you know, create this line of whatever. I don't know, it's not really a line, but the shadow of darkness of whatever delineation, you know, between foreground and water, I guess. That so see that really worked out, you know, just kind of making this darker up top here. Now, if this was, you know, if I was going to put some shadow down here or something like that in this water with some darker inks or this, then I could have left it lighter like that. But since this is like really light right on the edge, then we went that way. Okay, now see right up here, speaking of that, like this area right here going up in here. Unless here's the thing. I might put a bunch of like white mist coming through our opening right here. So maybe I'll leave that a little bit lighter. Or I don't know, we can add a little bit of tone. We can still make it darker, but it'll be right over the top of that. Or this rock right here. Let's do this little darker form right up top, right that. So see, it kind of closed it off a little bit more, you know, to separate those areas, distances, I guess, or whatever, regions of the card. I mention this all the time, but it's what this teacher of mine, she referred to as checkerboarding. So now you have lighter, and then you know, it was kind of light through here, so you can just kind of close it off a little bit, but you know, it goes whatever, light, darker, this whole kind of region in here, light. And then you go darker like that, and then light again. If I left this all light up top here, this whole area would just be kind of lighter in general. I mean, I can, you know, make it darker at the base too, but the more kind of, I don't know, whatever, zones or something like that, or forms that you kind of checkerboard things, it just kind of potentially adds to a little bit more contrast and variation across your card, or across your pieces that you do. And again, it's not just scenic stamping. You know, she wasn't referring to it where, you know, I learned that whatever concept or strategy, it was in a life drawing class, you know, where we're drawing, you know, nude people. All right. Okay, I think that is good as far as our shading goes. Let me see. Let me try to extend the shading a little bit. Okay. Let's add in some color into the scene. There's a little bit of gray, grayish, slate gray, aquamarine, I think. I really love this aquamarine. And then we'll add in some little mossy touches, I think, with a little bit of green in here on these rocks, and hopefully we'll make them look a little bit more, I don't know, whatever, animated, alive, with some additional tone. I do have some grays, a lot of them. It's like very apparent when I get a haircut and it's like, you know, wearing like a black, yeah, whatever. What do you call those, smocks or whatever, things? It's like, wow, look at all that. It almost looks like it's all gray. That's what it feels like. All right, let's see. I don't need to do a lot of this because I've handled a lot of the shadow work already. This is just a little bit more of a bluish tinge to it, you know, like that. I won't spend too much time with this because it's not going to look like I'm doing anything on your screens here. But it'll provide me with a little bit of a base coat for some color. These ones are fairly bright. Here, I should have sharpened this before, but let's go into these like so. It's kind of introducing some of the blues that are in this holographic into the forms. So I have it down in the shadow areas, and then I'm kind of creeping it out into up like this rock here into that open area where you can kind of see it, that color a lot more. So as I'm adding it in the shadow areas, you can't really see too much. I could see it here. It makes the shadows a little bit richer instead of just being like plain grayscale. It's a little bit of more of a, you know, this temperature or this blue tone in here. So it's a richer shadow color. It's subtle though. Okay, like that. I don't know if you can see that little bluish kind of tinge right there. And let's try a little bit of green. I put the green in different areas. It's supposed to represent like a little bit of like mossy growth or something like that on the rocks. This one here, I'm not really adding it too much in the shadow areas. I'm kind of just hitting a little bit of these areas here that are exposed that I didn't go over it with you know, my other colors. you know, the blue and the gray and the black. And what this does is it just kind of warms up the scenario slightly with these little touches like that. And again, here's this little greenish tinge right here. So it kind of relates to the, you know, the holographic color scheme in there. And let's go into our trees. We'll just go with a couple different tones of brown, values of brown. Okay, I should have sharpened these before too. Okay, let's start off with a little bit of a warmer one. Okay, so hopefully you can see a little of that. This is a darker brown right here. Bring some of it down in these rocks, maybe. It's just a tiny bit of warmth, I guess. It doesn't look like brown when you're applying it over the top of, you know, a bunch of black and grayscale. But again, it's a little bit richer of a kind of a color scheme, like right in here when you add a little of this brown tone in here. So if you look at just in general, you know, someone's looking at this, they're not going to notice that really. But sometimes it just makes, I don't know, it just makes the whole feeling of the piece a little bit richer and deeper with the forms like that. And again, not that you really need it, but I don't know, I have fun kind of in those little details like that. Alright, I have that. What about like so? And I have this little open area. I think I'm gonna put something in there, like a deer or something like that. This one might fit right in here. That's a little bit too big. Maybe I'll find something smaller. But this little rider was fun. I've used her, so she was in this one right here. She would actually fit right there really nicely. Maybe it's like a part 2 of a series of 3 pieces of this little rider here. Okay, let's add in some of our extra white pigment ink in here, like around in these forms. We'll make it look a little bit more misty and hopefully ethereal, whatever. Tim Holtz Distress Watercolor Pigment Pencils. Man, that's a mouthful right there. Tim Holtz Distress Watercolor Pigment Pencils. Okay. And Stampin' Up! Watercolor crayons. Okay. Got it. The watercolor crayons. Do the distress ones do they call them distress because they're matching the colors of the distress ink pads or something like that? All right, cotton ball, white pigment ink. I'm using a new cotton ball because that other one was like super compressed. And I want this one to be nice and airy and light, I think. I mean, it's still compressed right here, otherwise I can't really apply or anything. But we'll just start fresh again. Okay, so we'll have some of this mist right around that kind of churning water at the base of the waterfalls. That's where I'm starting out, okay? And you just kind of start tapping like right around where you want it to kind of emanate from, and then I'm creeping it out into the areas around it. Say I want a little bit of a smaller ball like that. Yeah, there we go. So you see that it's just a little bit lighter right there. And then we'll just keep building it up however opaque we want it. I don't want it opaque, but you know, you just kind of keep moving it towards that. Now see, it's kind of glowing a little bit more. But you just, you know, I just build it through light taps like that, light applications of the ink. That, and we'll do that. We'll try to do that same type of thing, like right around in here. Okay, so it's like this churning water. You see this big rock. I think it looks pretty cool like that too, but I think it'll look possibly even better with a little bit more variation. Yeah, the moonlight white. So you just have to take it slow and thin, you know. So my pad right here, I always tell people this one right here, I always keep kind of medium dry or something like that. If I'm stamping in pigment ink, white pigment ink, I use this pad right here. It's the same pad, but I put the C for cotton, you know, because it also has like little cotton hairs on it and everything like that. So see right here, you just have to kind of get used to kind of applying something and not seeing anything happen for quite a few applications of it. So it's like, see that little glowing kind of area right there starting to appear? And I don't know, what is that, like 20 taps or something like that? So it's like you're just applying, as I always mention, it's like little powder or something like that. And what I always hear from people is, hey, you know, I just can't do that. You know, I got too heavy of a hand. And I don't think it's really that so much. It's when people are used, and me too, when I'm used to using media, you're used to seeing that application of media when you apply it, okay? So if it's like a marker or something like that, you're not used to using, you know, some marker like this color and then using it and seeing like a 1% version of it that's barely visible. So with something like this, they're expecting to see something after like a few taps of it, right? But you're really kind of spreading out that application, a very thin application, over the course of, you know, in this case, many taps like that. Okay, so you can see that kind of mist forming right in there. So I always tell people, you know, that just and it's usually it's the first time they've done it too, so they're saying that they can't, you know, or they have a hard time with it. You know, if they did one piece with that, and you know, they always get the hang of it because I've done it before in workshops, you know, and everyone gets it. But I have to you know, I have to really kind of change people's kind of perspective on application rates, you know, and change their kind of expectations of it, where it's like, oh, okay. Because I know people can do this right here because they say, hey, I just use it too strong. Because if I told someone to apply some makeup onto like a one, you know, some toddler's face for Halloween, they're not gonna just, you know, go in there and like smash it down on that kid's face, you know. They'll adjust accordingly. Like if you're applying like cold pack cream, you know, some toddler wants to be a clown for Halloween. All right, so see this little rock right in here. Just like over here, see that little bit in the corner? Let's do that same thing right over here. Like that. I'm going to have this like bush over here, so I'm kind of blocking out a little bit more of this because I want those kind of like leaves to kind of stand out against this background. So let's go a little bit more like that. Okay. That one looks a little... Oh, you know, I totally forgot too. One of the things that'll help this whole kind of application, transition from these rocks to the water are my tiny rocks again. You know, I always use that stamp. Okay, let's see here. Let's put a little bit... I don't know if I want some of these tree trunks. Maybe. Let's try it here. I'll put a little bit like this. I'll put a little bit around a couple of them. I won't do it over too many of them. Okay, so anyways. So this right here, it goes from soft to crisp to soft to, you know, crisp right here. It's darker, or you can call it lighter to darker to lighter, you know, to darker to lighter. So that's kind of checkerboarding too, but it's checkerboarding from a lighting standpoint, but you're checkerboarding it too from a textural standpoint because it goes from soft to crisp to soft to crisp, light, dark, you know what I mean? So this really kills a couple birds with one stone in terms of creating, you know, contrasts, variation across your card. You know, if you're doing, I always mention this too, you can do this on like word stamps too. If you're stamping a word stamp against a white background, you can, you know, bring some of this onto maybe the upper edge of it or something like that, where it just kind of blends in with the paper, but maybe it looks like lighting is hitting those words across the top, and it can make them look a little bit more three-dimensional. Here, since I'm putting that form in there, probably that writer, let's put a little bit of light right in here too. So that's the base of this tree right there. Okay. All right. Note, okay, the Tim Horsey Girl. The Tim Holtz pencils are pure pigment, no timber barrels, so you can use them. Okay. What is the binder on that, on those pencils? Okay, they're watercolor pencils, so they're water soluble then? They can be water reactive then. You add them in there and add water to it, and they dissolve. Okay, let's see. Let's add in some of our textures into that water. All right, here, sorry. There we go, like that, right at the base, like that. And I'm blotting it off, so I'm getting some lighter impressions of it as well. Okay, so we have that, like so. I should put a little bit of white over the top of a couple of those too. And just layer it again. Let me make sure those are dry. All right. Something like that. All right, sorry. I'll move all this up so you can see it better. Let's add in some foreground, and then we'll add in our little subject matter. And hopefully, you know, when I stamp that little figure in here, I don't blur them or something like that. The final piece of the composition. All right. So we have this overhang of that foliage, and we'll add some down below as well. I'll put some like in front of the rock down here, so I'm just stamping it right over the top of this foreground boulders and lichen impression. I'm holding this down a little bit longer because I am stamping this over the top of this, which has a lot of, you know, waxy watercolor and colored pencil applications on here. So I'm hoping it transfers just fine. Yeah, it gave me a pretty good impression right over the top, right down here as well. Okay, so see, I put a little bit of extra mist right back in there just so we'd be able to see this branch coming out into that area. And I was going to put some more right down in here, so we'll mask off some of this rock like that. So I'll have this branch in front of the rock, and then we'll have some of it in back of it, so it kind of, you know, whatever, envelops the rock a little bit more. It gives, I don't know, it gives the rock a little bit more, the foreground area a little bit more dimension in general. That, and then that looks weird. Here we need a little touch of it right there, a little transition piece right there. And then another one, I think, right over here. Do I want another? Yeah. I don't like this little piece right there without anything. It's like these leaves are kind of like a little softening element. And it just breaks up that just sharp, hard edge, I think. Like that. Let's see. You can put a little piece of it down here too. Here. This is the leaves stamp, by the way. Let's go right here. I'll just put a tiny bit. It's like a little half-inch portion of it coming from down here. A couple portions of it. Okay, so anyways, you see that right there. So this little area right in here, I mean, the rocks, I think, looked fine too, but now, I mean, you make that section right here a little bit more interesting, I think, you know. It's kind of interesting, huh? I put my hands right there, and you can see all these other colors right there in that holographic. Okay, there's a lot of glare. Sometimes I forget about this, but, you know, this is, you can see a little bit more of what this looks like at different angles. There's a lot of glare on it sometimes, but you can see the, I don't know, whatever, the personality of this piece at different angles. This is like all washed out right here, these black tones like that, but it's because my studio lighting right here is shining off them. And Brilliance inks have that little bit of, I don't know, kind of luster to the inks, even white. So they're really reflective, but the piece looks more like this right here. But, you know, it can look different, you know, different angles, of course. All right, where did that rider go? All right. I'm going to put her back behind this rock, or she's, you know, kind of riding on a ledge in the distance there. darken this little area right here. I stamped it a little bit low, so I'll create this little bit of a ledge right here. And it'll provide a little bit of a shadow work as well, like that. All right, there they are right there in discovery of yet another whatever rainbow falls. And a little bit more contrast right around in there, like that. All right. Now, at this point in time, you can still, you know, if I wanted to add a little bit of tone in the four corners or something like that with some black, you know, we can do that. Let me see here. This is what I do sometimes to create a little bit more kind of internal containment of a piece. You make the corners. I can't do this corner right here because this has that exposed vinyl, but these three other corners right here that have objects, I'll just put a little bit of this black pigment ink down here just to kind of close off the edge a little bit more, or the corners. And by doing that, I think the tension goes into the scene a little bit more. Or there's a little bit more, I don't know, yeah, containment, I guess, you know. And then also, you do that like that, and you're kind of rounding out the composition a little bit more from standard 90-degree angle corners like this. I won't go too much because this scene is so kind of wide open, you know, from across the piece. I don't have it like really focused in terms of a tighter kind of lighting scheme or area like that. So I'm just going like that. So it's, I don't know, it's probably, I don't know, I guess that's quite a bit darker. It might be 40% darker in the corners like that by doing that little touch right there. But they were already dark, so I can go kind of darker. If they were really light, I might just go 15% or something like that, just to make it a little bit lighter. But yeah, this is pretty fun right here. And let me see here now that I'm looking at that. I try to bring in some of this black into the, you know, right in here, maybe a little bit more in some of my shaded areas. The colored pencil did pretty good, but sometimes ink just has that little bit of extra. I don't know what it is. I guess it's a smoother application maybe than a textured one. I don't know. The black went on pretty smooth though. Like right down in these kind of darkest of areas, I think that just a little bit more of like a, you know, application like that of a darkness looks pretty good. All right, let's take a look here again. Yeah, that looks better to me. Just kind of hitting these areas a little bit more, just with, I don't know, whatever, 10, 15%, a little bit of a darker area like that can be a nice little touch. It makes the lighter area seem 10 to 15% lighter too, sometimes, like that. I'm looking through here, and it looks like I blocked out things pretty well. I did want some of that color of the holographic to be showing in some of these areas here. I don't know if it does. I guess it does. Like if I go like that, you can really see that, you know, it's still kind of reflective in there. Like I could see this whole glare right here of the holographic, but I did block it out pretty good. Which I wasn't thinking that I would do. Okay, yeah, see right here, like this. I wanted some of that color to still show in my falls, which it does right here at certain angles. Right over here. Okay, it does a little bit. I maybe I should put it on a little bit thinner throughout there. I would have wanted a little bit more of that color showing through. So this one's a little bit more opaque over here. I don't know, I can add in like a, you know, purple right into it. It's not the holographic color of it though. But if you make it, you can just add your colors back into it and it'll just stay that color. But here's a little bit of violet right there. But anyways, it's pretty fun. Again, using these types of things like this. Again, a lot of the coloring is taken care of, and the super dynamic kind of aspect of it is, you know, inherent in the surface itself. It's just kind of utilizing it. So again, you don't have to add in all these colors like that on these holographics like this. So, you can think about this largely in terms of like it's just like a grayscale type of application of media, and then you get the benefit of having all those different colors in there. Hello, how are you, military mom? Good to see you. Happy Friday to you. Okay, now let's see right here. The Neo Color 2 water soluble crayons. My go-to for watercolor. Got it. Watercolor brush. It'd be cool to play around with some of those different types of media on here and then have them water reactive or a little bit and see what that does on here. You might be able to play around with that. Let's see here. Yeah, Linda, I know you've done this composition before. Yeah, isn't it fun on the holographic like that? It worked out pretty good, I think. Just having that as your kind of your body of water like that. I think Linda, you've done. Was the last time you did this one? Was it the one where we had the light beams kind of running through here? Oh, that would be another thing that would be pretty cool, is to do this type of composition. So people that are familiar with the channel or the pieces that I've done, how we do those like light beams sometimes in pieces. And then I don't know if I would do it on here. But like if I had like some sort of like create a little bit of a light source up here, or maybe the light source is off scene, but you can have those crepuscular rays kind of running through here like that. I would be blocking off too much of the remaining holographic on here, I think, if I added those crepuscular rays in here. But that'd be another fun thing to do with this paper, is to do those rays. Have I done that before? I probably have, but I just can't remember. But yeah, just so many different personalities. So let me see if I can find that kind of night-ish version. I mean, that kind of looks like nighttime like that. But then you run it like this, and that looks like high noon, or I don't know, whatever. It's like all the different times of the day within this one type of paper like this. So yeah, just really, really fun and dynamic. And all made possible, again, with the use of the Brilliance pigment inks. And I pray that they never discontinue them, because a lot of people, even years ago when I started utilizing them again on here, a lot of people just have never heard of Brilliance ink. Or the people that know it, it's like they've had a pad sitting in their collection for like 20 years that they just haven't used, which was the case with me when I started using it. I wasn't really using it a lot. But with the use of the printable vinyls right here, it's really opened up a really killer application and combination of media and surface, that just, I don't know. I guess it was around, but we just, didn't think about using it. I don't know when printable vinyls came into be, but it's just such a really fun and dynamic surface to utilize with, I don't know, different compositions. I'm still exploring it too, so. Oh, hello, Bonnie. Okay. I forgot about something too. You're doing this composition on a full page 6 times. I've done this, 6 times, and yeah. Okay, here I forgot about this one extra little thing right here. I didn't go in here with the acrylic paint pens either. It almost doesn't really need it, but here's what I was going to do. I almost forgot about this, but we'll take our Dr. Martin's bleed proof white. And we'll get some of this extra. I think I just splashed it right there. Okay, let me. I'm not squeegeeing it off, but that's what I think of when I'm squeezing off a lot of that paint. And I always say that using this splatter painting technique at the base of waterfalls is really fun. I'm thinking right now, man, maybe I should go with a more controlled process of just doing it with adding the splashes down with the acrylic paint pen, but why be tentative? I'm being a tentative splatter painter here. So do you see that right there? So I'm only releasing like a couple little, whatever, bristles at a time, a few. So it's like I see little like 5 little dots or something like that at a time. And then we'll come, let me see here, let me go a little bit more. And then I'll come over here. Can you see that? Sorry, I can't zoom in a little bit more. I'm sure it would go out of focus on me. I'm going pretty close too. This is one of those instances where I want it in a really targeted area, so I'm only about a half an inch from my vinyl here. All right, so there we go, like that. So see that right in there? Right here, those little splashes like that. It gives the scene a little bit more motion. I can probably even put a little bit right there. It's kind of at the base of that waterfall. I don't want to do too much because it's a splatter paint, splatter all over this whole area right there, but we'll do that here. Let's do this too. I'll put a couple down here. That's really big. I just wanted to vary the size of the little splashing dots a little, just a touch. All right, so there. That's a little bit better. It's giving it more motion right at the base of the waterfalls, right? Look at this like rainbow thing like that, huh? All right, now we're done, I think. You're done when you're doing the like scenes like this. When you start like after you splatter things, that's when you're kind of done with the scene. All right. So, anyways, How many? Let me see. Linda has done. What did she? She's done this composition 6 times. So Linda's next composition is the full page, 8.5 by 11 version of this on the printable vinyl sticker paper, where she utilizes, like a half bottle of Brilliance ink. Okay, so that was a lot of Brilliance ink, but I didn't re-ink my pad before I did this piece tonight, so I can't remember the last time I re-inked it. So it didn't take up too much, ink, but as far as like a scene utilizing, Brilliance ink, like this one last night with, all the Brilliance ink down here, you do use a fair amount, but if you have a re-inker bottle of it, just one re-inking of your pad to a medium, whatever dampness, dryness, or whatever should be sufficient. It just and when you're doing those final touches, getting those lighter applications of it, just remember to go with a really dry application of it, and you'll be fine. Just really extend the process out of in terms of kind of the look that you're going after, and you'll be in control of it completely. So I like the look of this, right? I like this foreground right here. I think that really stands out, really kind of dimensionally. It'd be kind of cool as a reflection card too, I think. Let me see. Here's like an example. This is a half page using the covered bridge up here. So you throw this like right in here like that. I don't know. It kind of looks interesting because you have the water going up that way now, in addition to like that down there. But that kind of works like that too, doesn't it? Yeah. So, I don't know. Maybe, yeah. Goodbye covered bridge. Maybe this is getting glued in here. But isn't that kind of fun? So there's all kinds of different possibilities like this with this paper too. So, yeah. And this composition too. I don't know. What do you think? Better in terms of with this lower portion down here. We have different foliage down here, but anyway, yeah, that seems to fit a little bit better. This is my first experiment right here. If I was to do this again, this area would get blocked off with white pigment ink, and I'd put more stuff down here, and it would look more like the lower portion down here with just, kind of like a little ponds or something. But anyway, yeah, that looks pretty good. Like that. Let's see. There. Maybe you just keep, you just kind of have like this lower portion down here, and you just do the top portion and you just drop it down there and take the photograph for when you're posting scenes or something like that. And then you have like different bottom elements like that. And, for your reflection or your horizon cards, we just leave this generic. So there's never like a finished card. You're just doing the top portions of it. But for the photograph and posting purposes, you don't have to redo these parts. Again, it's like a movie studio where all those backdrops already kind of set, for the different scenes. All right. For checking Rainbow Falls. Rainbow Falls. Fun with the holographic. Kind of fun doing the Rainbow Falls without having to do any of the rainbow colors. Whatever. That company did it for us. All right. Hope you all have a great rest of evening and weekend. Hope to see you in the future live streams. Thanks for checking out the latest holographic experiment.